The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
Welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my favorite panel, and I hope your favorite panel, Dr. Mark Bound and Dr. Scott Gershwer. Today we will be answering listener emails, and we have a question from Deidra, who lives in Miami, Florida. And Deidra asks, the government shutdown is having a serious impact on air travel here in the United States. I know agencies like the Post Office and IRS are still up and running, but air traffic controllers seem to be in short supply. I know that travel numbers from foreign countries are down this year, but I've noticed that travel to Miami's beaches is also down. Do you think this has anything to do with flights being canceled due to the shutdown or due to something else?
Something else.
Something else.
Something else, I agree.
Something else. The Canadians aren't coming, Deidra.
Check this out. 28 million people visited Miami-Dade County in 2024. There won't be a fifth of that this year. Governor DeSantis, you are on notice. President Trump, you are on notice. This is one of the great places to go to visit when you come to the United States, and nobody wants to go there because you have turned it into a fascist, horrible place that you have not rebuilt after the hurricanes that hit. You've isolated our allies, us from our allies, and you're promoting our enemies. And it is very negative for the entire United States, but Florida's feeling the brunt of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Deidra. Yes, air travel has been impacted. Of course, we've seen that in the news because of the shutdown. Air traffic controllers are no longer getting trained, or in some cases paid. It's an issue. But the problem you've got there in Florida is pretty much the same problem they have in places like New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, New York. The Canadians basically have thumbed their nose, and this was before the shutdown. Trump's policies, when it comes to Canada, and the way he's talked about Canada being the 51st state, and they're terrible to deal with, and all of this. The Canadians came together. The Canadians absolutely came together and basically thumbed their nose to the United States and said, you know what? Okay, fine. There's reports today, and there's been reports for the past month, where liquor sales, that great Kentucky bourbon that comes out of the United States, nobody's putting it on the shelves in Canada, and that's hurting that industry. So, sorry, guys in Kentucky, you voted for them. You got them. There you go. There's so much here, and it kind of surprises me that Canada, in my mind, I'm from the upstate of New York, which people from down in Scott's neck of the woods where he grew up would call us Canadians anyway, because we were up there in the frozen north, in the Hicks, Canadian Hicks. It surprises me. Canada always was just this nondescript country. Everybody knew they were nice, and they played hockey. And their national sport wasn't hockey, but actually lacrosse, believe it or not. They were just Canadians, and they were inoffensive, and they didn't take offense to many things. They were just kind of nice people. If you see the Canadians today, they are becoming ferociously patriotic, to the point where I was watching the Yankees play the Blue Jays the other day, and they were doing the national anthem of Canada. And I got news for you. There wasn't a silent voice in the house. And when they played the U.S. national anthem, because the Yankees were there was a bare smattering of clapping. You've insulted them. We find out that the Canadians can be insulted, and when you insult them, they do take it personal. And that's half your problem right down there in Miami. Like Scott said, you're going to have a fifth of the people visiting the Miami-Dade area than you had in the previous year. And I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of those are going to be Canadians. And that's going to go for Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, Maine, all those northern states that border Canada are going to really run into some of the same problems. Now, the one place that borders Canada that is not running into that problem is Washington State, surprisingly enough. Yes, there's a downtick, but they see Washington State more as a kindred spirit than they see, say, Vermont, which is kind of funny because Vermont's kind of like Canada in a way. Not so much Maine, but again, this is a creation, and it's going to continue. You think it's bad now? Wait till those Canadians find out, and they're finding it out now, how much Canada has to offer them if they stay home and they do staycations, or when they start to see how much Europe has to offer them. And instead of coming here, they can go to Europe. Where your tourism down there is going to be crushed. And let's face it, that's the only thing that keeps Florida from falling into the ocean, tourism. And bad news for you. Your governor and the president, and again, I don't know if you're a Republican, Deidra. If you're not, excuse me for that. But these are the consequences. You've brought on the wrath of the Canadians and their elbows up. And hey, sorry.
I guess
That's
on the
just
other hand,
Yeah.
the other hand, it's a really great time to go to Disney because there are no lines and you can park anywhere you want.
But you better get there soon because if not, you're probably the prices are going to go up because the Canadians aren't coming. They got to make that money back somehow.
Yeah, I agree. It's the shutdown is relatively recent, so the air situation with delays and no air traffic controllers, because of course they're not being paid. They can't afford to simply work for nothing, so they're calling in sick, many of them, and they're working other jobs that they can work quickly, pick up quickly and work quickly and get paid for. The other stuff that Trump and his ICE people have been doing, that's been going on since January, and the insults and the incarcerating of people who have done nothing, including Canadians, and at least one Canadian has died in ICE custody. I think either something like 75 people have died in ICE custody this year. 57, 75, something like that. The number is frighteningly high. 2 or 3 of them have been Canadians. And Canadians, as I understand it, they're not returning to their rental properties. They're selling their winter homes that they owned in Florida and in Arizona and Nevada, like Las Vegas, stuff like that. People aren't coming. And everyone I know who doesn't live in the United States who has expressed any interest in visiting, I have said, as we have spoken in our last podcast to a listener from Germany who had said something about always wanting to visit, don't come. It's not safe. My daughter and her spouse, who live in British Columbia, they used to come back and forth across to Washington State. They don't come anymore. They don't want the hassle of potentially being searched or whatever as dual nationals. They're not coming across anymore, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't. If I lived outside this country, I wouldn't come here. What for? What? To risk being detained and to be treated badly? There's not, I mean, and Trump is already bellowing and preening about having the World Cup and the Stanley Cup and the 250th birthday of the United States, God help us, next year, and he gets all this stuff. I just can imagine. And Kristi Noem of Department of Homeland Security has said, "Oh, ICE is going to be all over everything, everywhere." Well, I hope people stay home to keep themselves safe. Watch all this stuff on TV. The Olympics in Los Angeles, right? 2026. People need to watch on television and stay home and keep themselves safe. I was thinking about Wizzo chocolates and the Crunchy Frog. and not and get and the spring surprise and getting something that you don't expect. And while the label says crunchy frog, most people don't see the label, and many people didn't see or really didn't listen when Trump was saying what he was going to do during the campaign. And with the spring surprise, I guess that is everything that probably should have been considered by anybody who really thought about who he was or who he is. And unfortunately, people thought only about the apprentice and who they believed him to be, not the person he is. And people did not listen to the duty to warn psychiatrists who attempted to alert the public
That's
prior to
great.
the election.
Brooke, that's awesome that you just compared Trump to a old Monty Python sketch.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it the other day with the crunchy frog.
You mean
And
you don't take the bones out? Well, if
yeah,
you
you
took the
don't.
bones out, they wouldn't be crunchy, would they?
Yeah, exactly. And spring surprise. And but it doesn't say crunchy frog on the label, and yes, it does right under monosodium glutamate. But I don't think they said anything about the spring surprise on the label, which is what got me thinking about not saying anything about going to this extent with ICE, although he may have during the campaign. I don't remember putting ICE and the National Guard and militarizing. It was supposed to be only the criminals and whatnot. But of course, the definition of who a criminal is, no one ever asked that question. Define criminal for us. And
Yeah,
so,
that's a fair point.
yep.
Because I think most Americans, I think it's like 90% of Americans, are all for deporting people who don't belong here. But what Trump promised was going after the worst of the worst. And that's not what's happening right now. It's not even close to what's happening right now. Like far fewer people who are the worst of the worst are getting deported than just people living out their lives and doing things who, yeah, came in illegally. Most of them didn't cross the border down south. Most of them flew into an airport and just overstayed their visas. And, um, you know, but can they be deported? Yes, absolutely. There are some really interesting stories about people who've been here for like 25 years, 30 years, have families that are all born here, are well established in the community. There's a chef, Sergio, down in Texas. It's kind of a famous case of a guy who didn't really think that he had to become a citizen. He wasn't interested in voting for anything. He didn't really care about the government. He just wanted to make a living here, and he made a really good living here. And he's not an illegal. I guess he isn't an illegal immigrant, but he's been here for so long. He just kind of thought that he was safe. But yeah, most Americans would say, yeah, get that guy out and let him come back in the right way. What we're seeing now with Americans being detained, citizens being detained, using profiling rather than using lists that are people that are here illegally and you can actually go and get them out. Instead, there's profiling going on at Home Depot parking lots and all kinds of places that are just, this is not very American. So I don't think people are going to be putting up for it for long. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I think we should probably just move on to something else.
Well, I only wanted to add
Yeah.
that from Trump's perspective, the people he's removing and the people on the naughty list, which may very well include podcasters like us because we disagree with him and we've criticized him, are the worst of the worst because we're not saying, oh, yes, sir, and bending the knee and kissing the floor and all that stuff. So that is the worst of the worst. So anybody who is not 100% white Christian nationalist who's doing whatever he wants is that person or those people are the worst of the worst. So no one asked him define the term. So I hope that we answered your question, Deirdre. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name. I don't know if it's Deidra or Deirdre. I guess it's Deidra. I'm sorry if you did not vote for Trump and you're stuck down there in Florida with DeSantis. We thank you for listening and appreciate your time. And if you're not yet subscribed on the platform of your choice, please do so, because subscribing is free, and we do appreciate all of our subscribers. So thank you again, and we will see you next time on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium offering social-political issue solutions to NGOs and international government agencies through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research. The Phoenix Research Group is a division of the Phoenix Research Institute, the producer of the Nova Society podcast.